Okay, we're alive, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight it'll probably be just me and Arknolia. And probably we'll try to get Keith on the line there. I'm going to try that right now there. YR DM'd me not too long ago saying he's not feeling well tonight there. So it'll probably be just us two here. Like I said, unless we could get Keith on the call here there. All right. Hoping maybe we could get Tommy on the show there, being Tommy NC 2010. Let me see here. Let me add. No.
You can tell him right. YR's not here, I guess.
Yeah, no, yeah. But, okay, brother. Let me see. I hate when the Skype does this, man. It just drives me nuts when the shit happens there. Okay. Here's the thing that gets me. It's just it takes its whole sweet time doing this shit, man. And yes, I am getting frustrated because no, I did not ask to add Jeebus to the call there. Here's the thing that gets me about my computer here. It gets to the point where you just boom. It gets to the point where you try to add somebody to the call, but it just takes this whole sweet time getting to where you want to go to. Okay, I'm going to try to add Keith to the program there. Let's see if we can do this here. In the meantime, we're going to be doing, as I mentioned in the vlog that I released it earlier this afternoon, we'll be doing part 3 of our look at all the 60s artists and all the art and bands and the songs that came out during that whole decade.
And hopefully we'll finish tonight, but it's possible we'll have a part. What are we on, 4 now?
I think we're on part 3 right now there. Yes.
Possible for a part 4, but we'll see.
All right there. Keith is unavailable, so like I said, it's just us at the moment there. So, okay. Maybe we could later on, we could probably add Tommy NC 2010 to the call there. He's always a cool cat to talk with at times there. Okay, yeah. So we picked up where did we lay off at? I guess it was blah blah blah.
The ends.
The ends, yeah, the ends, yeah, right there. Now, as I mentioned, I think I mentioned this in the vlog there early on. You were bringing up a lot of bands and songs that I didn't even know exist because when we think of the 60s, we think of the main groups like the Doors, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Hermits.
Well, bear in mind that I lived in that time, so
I know, yeah,
I would know more.
Yeah, true there. But me, I just, I wasn't born into the middle of that decade there, 1966 for that matter. So, like I said, all this is just new to me there.
Well, you'd be amazed. Some of this is really good stuff, and it just got forgotten.
You know what? I should probably probably to me, there are a lot of 60s songs there that I remember hearing a lot of times. Especially most of at the Goodwill stores around the Texas area there, especially around the Conroe, the Spring area there, the one by 1960 Road there, when that was still functioning. They would play a lot of 60s music almost all the time. So that's where I remember hearing most of the stuff there. The only thing was I didn't know the title, let alone the artists who performed those songs there. But there was a few that I remember, like Downtime, Petula Clark there. Many artists that I didn't know their names of. You just remember basically the chords of the song and how it went there, the opening riffs and the vocals there.
Yeah.
All right there. So. So, okay. Go ahead there.
Well, I guess we really don't have any news to get into unless you know something. I know nothing.
No, not really. I brought this up to attention to YR not too long ago that happened shortly after the passing of Eddie Van Halen back in October 2020. And since David Crosby passed away this past Thursday at age 81 there, as we reported on that episode there later on that evening, I brought this thing came to my mind during that while we were paying our homage to the guy. seems that back in 2020, after Eddie's passing, somebody asked on Twitter what his opinion of Eddie Van Halen's passing, what he thought about that. Crosby replied with just one word with three letters, "Meh." And apparently that pissed off lots of people there, a lot of Van Halen fans, as well as fellow musicians from the likes of Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, Tracy Guns from the band LA Guns, and they took a lot of hard shots at Crosby. You know, even Dee Snider saying he hated him and hated his mustache as well. You know, and the guitar player from Testament, Alex Skolnick, he came up a little something more diplomatic, saying, I understand you were not a big fan of his music there, but you give the guy credit. He was multi-talented on the guitar there. I mean, it inspired so many people to pick up the instrument and start playing like him. The same with Jimi Hendrix and Randy Rhoads and other guitar players like Eric Clapton there.
Right.
Yes, and Crosby later tweeted out there saying, look, I get it. I understand his talent meant a lot to so many. I just wasn't a big fan of the guy there. So my apologies to everybody out there who I offended there. Now keep in mind, it was no secret that Crosby also never liked Jim Morrison of the Doors, stating that Morrison was obnoxious, was something about him that just didn't like.
From a personal level, I understand he really was that way. I mean, he was obnoxious.
Yeah, it's true there, yeah. But then again, that was Jim Morrison for you. That's how he was to the very end there. So a lot of people are not going to take a liking to him, but you got to give Morrison his due. He was
absolutely.
He wrote some good ass poetry, good ass lyrics for the Doors. He was an on-stage presence that was definitely unpredictable. He could stand in one position throughout the whole concert, or he could do some loopy shit, like condemn the police for macing him, that one incident on stage there, or he could threaten to expose himself like he did in Miami, Florida. I mean, he did a lot of crazy shit there. I mean, like there were a lot of footages that was used in the video for Love Me Two Times, a live version of that song there. That appeared on the Live She Cried album, which came out in '83, and all the footage of his situations with the police really, really was detailed in that video there. There was a lot of crazy stuff there. I mean, like, I don't know if there were any riots in any Doors shows or what it was, but they were chaotic, nevertheless.
Right. Okay.
But I guess now that David Crosby has reached the rock and roll pearly gates, I can imagine Eddie and Jim are in there waiting for him, saying, "You got some explaining to do." And of course, Ray Manzarek will be alongside Jim, asking the same question.
Right.
Yeah. So, without ado, shall we begin with our continuation?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. The first group is the Ohio Express. Their biggest song was "Yummy, Yummy, Yummy," which I think was on a Simpsons episode.
Yeah. Well, I would not be surprised. A lot of old songs get on the Simpsons a lot of days. Remember the Surfing Bird?
Right.
That's true there, yeah. That was running amok that was running amok massively there for a while there. It was a big hit.
Yeah. They had more than that song, but that was the big one.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny you mentioned that as well, because many '60s songs often end up on soundtracks for movie trailers, especially Disney. You remember when Boys Are Back in Town was using the Toy Story there when it came out?
Right.
Yeah, it's true there. But anyways, back to the '60s there.
Okay, we had the Occasions. Their biggest song was something called "Girl Watcher."
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. I'm a girl watcher. Here comes right now. Yep. Yeah, but I remember hearing that on an oldie station at once years ago there. I forgot what's the name of the station there.
And then you had Oliver, who his big one was Good Morning Starshine.
Oliver, no last name, that's it?
Yeah. Good Morning Starshine. The Earth says hello.
Oh, interesting there. I don't think I've heard
The,
of that. I don't think I've heard of this guy, let alone the song there.
yeah, it was pretty big.
Mm.
Then you had Otis Redding, who had a huge hit with one posthumously.
Yep. Sitting on the dock of the bay. Yep.
Then he had others too, but that was the big one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the one they always play that particular song, no matter what.
Yeah. Then you had the Outsiders, who
Time
had
won't
a pretty big.
Time won't let me.
Yeah, and the odd thing about it is that was a one-hit wonder. But the really strange thing about it is their lead singer was a member of another group. I was trying to remember the name of the group.
Oh.
I don't remember the name of the group, but they were a one-hit wonder.
So the singer,
and he was the lead. The lead singer had two one-hit wonders with different groups.
Oh wow, interesting. Any the name of this other group they was in, or no?
Well, I was trying to remember. I think it was the Gallery, but I could be wrong.
All right, I must be a one hit word because I had never even heard of the Gallery. And what was the singer's name there, by chance?
I honestly don't know.
Oh wow.
I mean, it was one of those things that generally groups like this, I tend not to remember, the singer or whatever. Like Question Mark and the Mysterions. Their lead singer was Question Mark, I suppose.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know his name. And
nobody knows his real name. He's basically kept a good job going, keeping his identity revealed. And for I understand, he's a Michigan native. I understand there.
I believe so.
Yeah, and being from Michigan myself there.
Yeah. Then you had Pat Boone.
We know him.
I mean, Patsy Cline was still going in the 60s. I think she died in early 60s.
Yeah, then that plane wreck there. If you ever saw, I remember telling Keith, or ever watched the movie Sweet Dreams with Jessica Lange in the starring role,
right?
And Sam Shepard. That movie was about Patsy Cline, and it detailed how she died.
Yeah. And of course, it was mentioned in the Coal Miner's Daughter.
Yeah.
Because Loretta Lynn and Patsy Cline were really good friends.
Yeah, I can imagine. And of course, we lost. I guess now they're reunited in country music heaven there.
Yeah. And you had Paul and Paula. Their big thing was, "Hey Paula."
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that song there. It was like, were they a married couple, brother sister, or just a couple there?
I think they were married, but I don't know.
Oh.
Because unless a group gets really big or whatever, I really don't delve into the group.
Oh.
Then you had the Paul Butterfield Blues Band.
I heard about them.
Their big thing was they were in Woodstock.
Yeah, I remember hearing about this group a couple of times in the past there. They were basically blues group, correct?
Yep. Well, that's why they were the blues band.
Yeah, exactly there. Wasn't it, I think it mentioned Blues Project, I guess it was, on the previous episode there?
Yeah, and they were definitely a blues band.
Oh, yeah. Blues were big. The blues was big in the 1960s thanks to all the black artists like Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, all these acts out there. I mean, bands like Zeppelin, Paul Butterfield, everybody else embraced them like crazy. Even a dude named Elvin Bishop.
Yep. Okay, Paul Marriott, his big hit was something called Love is Blue, an instrumental.
Ah.
Paul Revere and the Raiders.
We know
they
them.
Were very big in the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
They had a ton of hits.
Yep. But the one we remember most was the anti-drug song Kicks.
Yeah, and they did a cover of Indian Reservation, which was originally, I believe, a Joe South song.
And I'll bet you Joe South received a lot of royalty checks there, thanks to them and Deep Purple as well there.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about Joe South doing Indian Reservation, but no, it's Don Fardo. Don
Okay.
Farden.
Don Farden, I see there. A little mix up there.
Well, my brain kicked in.
Ah.
Then you had Peaches and Herb.
Yeah.
Herb. I don't know.
Peaches and Herb. They back to the 60s there?
Yeah.
Wow, interesting because the Peaches and Herb, I remember when they came out, I first heard of them was back in 1978, 79 during the disco era. They had this hit song called Shake Your Groove Thing, bam, bam. And then they later had
No,
this
they had a
mess.
pretty big hit in the 67, 68, and I don't remember the name of it, or I'd tell you.
Oh, yeah. I only one big hit I remember them was the ballad Reunited and It Feels So Good. And that was in 1978, 79 there. So that's the
Yeah.
Peaches I know of pretty much there. Peaches and Herb, that is. It was just
You had,
Herb and some lady who called herself Peaches.
then you had Peggy March. She
Mm.
did something called, I believe, Soldier Boy.
I think I remember hearing some of the bits of that song there on the TV commercial there.
Probably.
I think so.
Then you had a group called People who
Mm.
did a cover of a zombie song, I Love You.
Oh, wow. People, just people, right?
Yeah, pretty good
Nice.
song. They did a
Nice.
good version of it.
Ah.
Percy Faith.
Oh, yeah, we
Uh,
know him. We heard about this guy many times there.
Percy Sledge.
Oh, yeah. We know that, so we know his big song there. When a Man
Biggest.
Loves. Biggest song there. And probably the only song that they ever played from this guy. I don't know if he
Yeah,
had
and he
other
had a
hits.
bunch. He had another one called Take Time to Know Her, which was a pretty decent song.
Yeah, but they always concentrate on When a Man Loves a Woman because that song gets overplayed, but at the same time, you can't help it because it had a lot of emotion during that song there. There's a lot of, and the details what a man will go through for the love of his life, you know?
Yeah. Then you had
Absolutely.
Peter and Gordon, who had a ton of hits.
Mm.
World Without Love, which was penned by
And
Lennon
McCartney.
McCartney.
Yes, I'm remembering. You know what? I had a Beatles songbook on the tabs on how to play this song, that song, and World Without Love was one of them included on there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that told me that they wrote other songs for other people just as well there.
Yeah, they did. World Without Love wasn't the only one.
Um, let's keep in mind that uh, John and Paul did backup vocals for a song called "We Love You" by the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
hearing that they played that on some. They were discussing that on some radio program many years back while living in Richmond, Michigan, of course. There, and I was listening to it. It's like, you know what? I'm in this music group there on Facebook called Track of the Day. Shout out to those guys up there, especially Brett, the administrator. And I was thinking about finding that song here on YouTube and posted it on there to give it the details about that. Now, there was a lot about to go do a little sidebar here. If I will say this, if there was a rivalry between the two groups, the Stones and the Beatles, it would have to be one of the most respectable rivalries ever. Yeah, they
Well,
competed.
basically, it was a press thing.
Yeah.
There really wasn't one between them.
Uh huh. Of course, so that's how the press works. They tried to do the same thing with teen bop singers Tiffany and Debbie Gibson with those during the 80s
Right.
there. And there was no rivalry whatsoever between the two there.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you had a large folk group. When I say large, I mean they were
Big.
popular. You know, there was only three of them, Peter, Paul, and Mary. And they did a lot of songs. Puff the Magic Dragon's probably their biggest one.
Oh yeah. I think I think they had a other song. What was it? Leaving on a Jet Airplane, the Arlo Guthrie cover there, I guess.
Well, Leaving on a Jet Plane, I think, is a John Denver cover.
John. Okay, there. Mm.
But they had a ton of pretty big songs. They had another one called I Dig Rock and Roll Music, which was pretty good. And again, they did folk songs, so there were a lot of songs, and they covered Dylan quite a bit.
Uh-huh.
Of course, who didn't?
Yeah, I know they did "Blowing in the Wind" there. I remember hearing that one
Absolutely.
time. And of course, we got to give props to Dylan as well because he came up with some lot of good hits there during the '60s there.
Yep.
Yep, and we also know the name of his backing band, simply called The Band. They decided to go off on their own to start their own career, which was pretty successful for a good number of years.
Yeah. Then you had Petula. I'm not sure how to pronounce her first
Petula
name.
Clark?
Yeah, because I've heard it different ways. Petula Clark.
Yeah, that's the way I ever heard it. And we know this song, Downtown.
She had a bunch of them. I mean, Don't Sleep in the Subway. This Is My Song. I should start making lists.
You know what? It's funny you should mention Don't Sleep in the Subway because if you're in the city and you see a lot of people sleeping in the subways, that song would be most fitting there when you think about it. Because there are a lot of times when I would travel back from Numbers nightclub back to our home back in Texas there, I would see a row of homeless people laid out there on the streets, napping, sleeping, blah, blah, blah there. And this was alongside Louisiana Avenue, which I would take to head back on I-45 there.
Yeah.
So it's fitting that song you just mentioned kind of seems fitting for that situation there.
Yeah. Then you had a guy who was another folk singer that I know a few of his songs, was Phil Ochs. And he had one that was a fairly large FM hit called Outside of a Small Circle of Friends.
Yeah.
That was about bad situations and people were keeping them to themselves because they didn't want it to get outside of a small circle of friends or something like that. You know, it's a good song.
Oh wow! And Phil Ochs. I mean, we'll go back to this guy. This guy was like a protester, I guess, singer, right? At times,
right?
Because he had this song. He had this song called "Thank God I'm a Liberal" that I heard bits of when some radio program was discussing this guy, and apparently he took his own life, unfortunately. There.
I guess so. I don't know.
Let me look up this guy because I guess he did some activist work, if I'm correct here. Blah, blah, blah. Let me get my phone here.
Yeah.
Okay. Give it a couple of seconds there, guys. Let me look up some shit there. All right.
While you're doing that, the Pink Floyd era, the Syd Barrett years started in the 60s.
Yeah, that's right. Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
Saucer Full of Secrets.
Yep, another great album from them. Well, I haven't really heard Piper at the Gates in its full length. We just know a couple of the songs.
Oh, you got it.
Go ahead.
You got to listen to that. Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun.
Well, that's I have
Interstellar
Overdrive.
That's a great instrumental.
Yeah, and by the way, I think I mentioned this. There is a video on YouTube of them performing that song at a Swedish music festival alongside Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently they announced those two, and I guess before they start the song, Roger Waters was giving some detail about how the song is done, this and that there. Now, going back to Phil Ochs, he wrote hundreds of songs in the 60s and 70s and released 8 albums. He had a lot of political activism, sardonic humor, sharp wit, blah, blah, blah. And he died in April 9th, 1976 in New York City there. And let me stop there. Okay. Blah, blah, blah there. Let's see here. Let's see. He also his influence included, the people influenced it included Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, Buddy Holly, Elvis Presley, Bob Gibson, Faron Young, Merle Haggard, and his best known songs was A Crucifixion, Draft Dodger Rag, Love Me, I'm a Liberal, Outside a Small Circle of Friends, which you mentioned, Power and the Glory, There But for Fortune, The War Is Over, and one called No More Songs. Right there. And apparently what it was is that in the year 1976, as I mentioned, he died by suicide. He had a lot of personal problems, including bipolar disorder and alcoholism. Yeah. So he was one of the basically liberal activist songwriters out there years before the 1990s liberal activism would take place there, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then you had PJ Proby.
Mm-hmm.
The Plastic Ono Band, late 60s.
And this was
John Lennon's group.
Yeah. Now, was there a
Their
real
biggie was Instant Karma.
Yeah, John Lennon. You know, it's kind of was there an official lineup, an official Plastic Ono Band? Because I remember hearing.
Honestly, don't know.
Because we heard the name so many times there, but I guess that the band when they did some shows in New York City, John Lennon and Yoko Ono did. They had members of a band called Elephant's Memory as their backing group.
Yeah.
In fact, they released one album on Apple Records, and Lennon produced it, which is interesting because I didn't know Lennon produced the records there.
Yeah.
Now, the Plastic Ono Band, by the way, they were, of course, they also backed up Yoko Ono as well, because at the same time Lennon released his album, Imagine, Yoko Ono released another album with the same kind of cover art, the same concept as the Imagine album cover, titled Fly. And let's not forget, John and Yoko released albums, John Lennon / Plastic Ono Band, and the same with Yoko Ono, with old photographs of themselves in the back cover there.
Yeah.
And the album John Lennon / Plastic Ono Band was one gritty album, man. Wow. Talk about dark. Massively dark. The song Mother, Working Class Hero, My Mommy's Dead. Oh, man. It was a dark-ass record. This was everything that the Beatles were not for. I mean, this is Lennon pouring his heart out into these songs here.
Yeah. If you listen to Lennon singing Mother, you can hear the anguish in his voice as he sings that song.
Exactly. Singing it towards his father who abandoned him and his mother who died in a car wreck. Man. And let's not forget, some of the disapprovals of his Aunt Mimi, and all that shit left deep scars in the back of his head there. In fact, I think I mentioned it. I've mentioned this before there. Later around the 70s, he sought therapy from I don't know the guy's name there, but he had a therapy plan called Tears for Fears, where the 80s pop group, got their name from there. It's where the subject is instructed by the psychiatrist or the therapist there to go back and remain some painful moments in their lives, and the response would be a loud scream or a yelling. And of course, Lennon, sought this kind of therapy because he had a lot of shit that was in the back of his head there.
Right.
Yes. And I guess another thing that was bothering him was the way he shunned his first son, Julian, the way he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Sean, the second son, got most of the attention, which kind of explains why, in a kind of way, Julian kind of has he has some kind of somewhat of a resentment there, which we understand fully, man.
Well, that's also the background behind the song "Hey Jude."
Exactly, yeah. When and Paul wrote that for Julian because after finding out his Lennon and Cynthia, his first wife, were getting a divorce. All right, so back to the list there. All right.
The next group I have on the list is the Premiers. Their big song was something called Farmer John.
Ah.
And pretty big.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
The Pretty Things, I've told you about them before.
Yes, I remember hearing a couple times in the magazine I used to read called Cream Magazine back in the when I was in my teenagers. And they were basically, were they a prog band or just a regular band or a rock?
Well, they were sort of a regular band from the UK.
Ah.
And they were big in the UK, but they never really hit it over here, which was kind of weird because they had some good stuff.
Wow, interesting there. Because I guess they have kind of like in the form of cult status, I guess you could see there.
Right, right.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay, Procol Harum, their
Yep.
first album
Yep.
was classic.
Yep.
Whiter Shade of Pale and Conquistador was on that album.
Yeah. And Whiter Shade
They
of
had a,
Pale, it's probably the biggest song they ever had was, of course, Whiter Shade of Pale. I mean, that song's been covered multiple times. Doral Pesch, the former singer of the German metal band Warlock, she did her version of that song. And of course, HSAS featuring Sammy Hagar,
right.
Neil Sean, Michael Shreve from Santana, as well as Kenny Arison, the outstanding session bassist there for Billy Squier and the Foghat at one point there. They they did this one album and 6 dates together around 1984. It's a pretty outstanding record. Definitely recommend it everybody listen here.
Yeah. And then the next group I got on my list is one called Quicksilver's Messenger Service.
Yeah, you mentioned them before there a few times. All right.
Can you hear that?
Here's something in the background there. No, I don't hear anything, unfortunately, there.
Okay.
Okay.
That was a song called Fresh Air by them. It's right up your alley.
Okay.
You would like it.
Okay, there. Interesting.
Then we got Rare Earth.
Oh, yeah. We
Their
know that.
drummer sang.
Go ahead.
And their big one was I Just Want to Celebrate.
Which I heard a couple times at the grocery store I worked at back in Texas a few times. I remember hearing that a lot.
They had other songs. They did a I'm trying to think of the name of the song. Well, they did a cover of Get Ready, which was 23 minutes long.
Wow. And I guess you recorded for Rare Earth Records, if I'm correct there?
I believe so.
Yeah, because I remember
a lot
seeing...
of people thought they were a black group, which was kind of weird, because their singer sounds very soulful.
But then again, a lot of white groups out there were sounding soulful at that time because they absorbed from all the our black artists, like I said, James Brown, Muddy Waters, Chuck Berry, Percy, Jackie Robinson, everybody out there. It was like all absorbing that stuff. B.B. King as well there.
Oh, I Know I'm Losing You.
That's right.
They did a good song cover of that song. Great cover of that song.
Yeah, really. Which is a Temptations cover, by the way, there. We know those two. And, of course, we can't forget Rod Stewart's version from his first solo record there, which is pretty damn good there. Good drum solo, by the way, during that song. I thought it was Carmine Appice or who it was there.
Yeah.
But damn good solo on that there.
The Rascals, they started out as the Young Rascals, became the Rascals, and they had a ton of hits.
Oh yeah.
Good Lovin', Groovin'.
Yep.
People Got to Be Free.
Mm-hmm.
How Can I Be Sure?
Come
On Up. Oh, I wish I could think of them, but they had enough that they released, I think, a double.
Did we ever mention
greatest hits album?
Well, did we ever mention the Loving Spoonful?
Yeah.
We did? Oh, yeah. Summer in the City, Do You Believe in Magic? John Sebastian. Daydream. Yep. John Sebastian, I think he's still around, I guess. You know, he hosted the show that was on the syndication, which would air late Sunday nights called Deja Vu. VIEW. And it was for basically they would play music videos to songs that came out way before the video music era. Like they would do this video for the song Whiter Shade of Pale featured actor Harry Dean Stanton. And they had one of the members of the Rascals doing Good Lovin' with the cast of Saint Elsewhere included.
Yeah. Ain't Gonna Eat Out My Heart Anymore.
Yeah, that's another one. That's I remember hearing that on that compilation I mentioned where I first heard Crystal Blue Persuasion and the Vanilla Fudge cover of You Keep Me Hanging On there. Plus,
Right.
other songs like Joe Texas, It's All Right, which I mentioned Huey Lewis covered on his covers records many ages later on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, you had Ray Stevens, who was one of the early
Parody,
comedy.
parody comedy singers before Weird Al Yankovic.
Except that he didn't do
Parodies.
songs that parodies. He did
Original
songs that
compositions.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was the one that was known for.
Tarzan.
Yep. He was also known for that one song, The Streak, about a guy running around butt
Oh
ass
yeah.
naked. And we saw that a
Yep.
few times in the 70s during various football games a couple times there.
Right.
Yeah. By the way,
Academy,
don't.
the Oscars one night too, I believe.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Now, by the way, for the record there, we recommend not streaking out in public there, I should say, there, unless you want
No.
to end up end up in jail there.
Yeah. Then you had Richard Harris, who really only had one big song, something called MacArthur Park.
Now, is this the same as the actor Richard Harris, or this is a?
It's one and the same.
Oh, really? So it's Richard
Yep.
Harris was a singer as well as an actor.
Well, he did the one big song. I don't know if he did others.
Well, because I
But
remember him.
MacArthur Park was huge in the late 60s.
Because I remember him. I guess he was also involved with some other Broadway stuff there. I think he was involved in that movie, My Favorite Year. No, that was Peter O'Toole. My bad there.
Right,
But he was
right,
also involved with the stage production of Camelot about King Arthur, Sir Lancelot, and everyone else there. Merlin the Magician.
right.
Yeah. So I'm just wanting to make sure there. I did not know they were the same person because I just didn't think it was.
Yeah. Someone left the cake out in the rain.
Wow.
You apparently never heard the song.
No, I never heard of it, but I know that as in today's era, that's considered cake abuse.
It's about a 7-minute song, I believe, and that in the
Wow.
60s was unusual, highly unusual.
Wow, there.
But it got played.
All right, there. I see.
The Righteous Brothers were going big in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Their biggest in the 60s was, well, You Lost That Loving Feeling, I think, was early 60s.
All we know, yes, and we know who produced that. Phil Spector.
Then you had Rock and Roll Heaven,
Mm-hmm.
Unchained Melody,
Oh,
Once
yeah.
in My Life.
Yep. And credit to Phil Spector. He was the man behind the wall of sound, where basically it was like sound coming from all angles, both channels, left and right there. It was like he had this unique, distinctive sound there when he produced the records there. I mean, he did that with the Ronettes, Ronnie Spencer, who he was married to for a while. But however, Spector's personality, that's a different story there.
Well, he either killed or tried to kill a girlfriend.
Yeah, we know. Yeah,
and went to trial for that.
Yep, got found guilty. And he had all these different as wigs on his head there. When it was revealed during a photo shoot in prison there, he was actually balding on top there.
Yeah. You have the Ripcords who did Hey Little Cobra.
Mm-hmm.
The Riveras, California Sun.
Yep.
Let's see. Roger Miller.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that name a few times.
Chug-a-Lug, Dang Me.
He
He did comedy songs of sorts, although every once in a while he would do one that he'd do some that weren't. But he had a ton of hits. Engine number 9, England Swings.
But he was British, right?
Yeah, no, he was American.
Oh, wow. Because usually someone who sings England Swings, it's like must have been appreciative of England there. Otherwise, he liked England a lot there.
Yeah. King of the Road was probably his biggest one.
Ah.
I'm amazed you hadn't heard him.
No.
The Rolling Stones, of course.
Obviously, yep, we know those like the back of our hand. All the songs. Have you seen your mother, baby, standing in the shadows? 19th Nervous Breakdown, Mother's Little Helper, Under My Thumb. You know,
Dandelion.
Dandelion, yes. Ruby Tuesday. All
She's a
those.
Rainbow.
She's a Rainbow. There. All those 60s songs there. 2,000 Light Years from Home. All those songs there, man. And we know the songs like the back of our hand. Needless to say. In fact, saying that now would be close to an understatement because, of course, we cannot forget. Can't get no satisfaction there.
Get Off My Cloud.
Yep, there. Mm-hmm.
Not Fade Away the Last Time.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all over now.
I Just Want to Make Love to You.
Time Is on My Side.
Yep, there. Mm-hmm. All those songs. And they would carry on, and they were, I guess you could say they really, they carried on a lot.
Yeah.
Throughout the years there. And they're still together. Unfortunately, it's a trio now.
Yeah, I was going to say it's down to actually 2 original members.
Yeah, Mick Jagger and the Time Lord Keith Richards.
Yeah.
And I mean that sincerely.
Right. He's got to be.
He's about, let's see, Jagger's about 70 or 80 years old. Keith Richards is 500 years. Actually, no, let me take it. 5,000 years old there. You know this. You know the guy is something. The guy is considered the ultimate survivor. When you see a meme on Facebook, as him with his guitar with a little boy, and the caption reads, "Keith Richards teaching Willie Nelson how to play guitar."
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense, man.
And you had the Ronettes who you mentioned a while ago.
Yep. Mm-hmm. We know "Be My Baby," which was one of them. "Baby I Love You," which the Ramones would later cover, starting in 1980.
Then you had Ronnie and the Daytoners, who did a song called "Little GTO."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You had the Rooftop Singers. They did a song called "Beans in My Ears."
Ah.
And another one called "Don't Let the Rain Come Down," about the crooked little man and his crooked little. Yeah, it wasn't talking about him being a thief. It was talking about him being like bent over and stuff.
I see there. Hmm.
Then you had Rory Gallagher.
And Roy Gallagher, he was an British. No, he was an Irish blues player there.
Rotary Connection.
Mm-hmm.
The Royal Guardsmen. What was their big hit?
Royal Guardsmen. Let's see. Give me a clue there.
Snoopy versus the Red Baron.
Gosh. And based on the Peanuts comics, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, they did almost a whole album on those type of songs.
Oh, wow. I remember reading all the little comics. I had all these Peanuts books, and always detailing Snoopy on top of his doghouse, which you would call his Sopwith camel up there.
Right.
And always going after "Curse You, Red Baron" was one of the big quotes he would say there.
Yep. Then you had Roy Clark.
Oh, yeah. One of the original guitar shredders out there, way before Eddie Van Halen, before Randy Rhoads, before any of the shredders.
He's a lot better than people give him credit for.
More than that, I see. If you had anybody who's ever seen him do his guitar stuff, damn, you could tell right away this man practices his ass off, for crying out loud. Look for him on YouTube, and you will see what I'm talking about, folks. And man, if your bottom jaw doesn't drop on the floor, there's something wrong out there. You're either deaf or dead. Either way, there.
Then you had Roy Head and the Traits.
Mm-hmm.
His big song was "Treat Her Right."
Yep.
And if you want to see something incredible, look up that song.
All right.
On YouTube.
All right.
And watch, because he's among the first break dancers ever. He puts on some moves that'll blow your mind. And this was from the 60s.
Interesting there.
But he does some things that you'll just sit and watch and go, what? How did he do that?
Yeah. Wow, interesting there. A lot of practice, folks.
And Roy Orbison was still making music in the 60s. In
Oh,
fact,
yeah.
Oh Pretty Woman came out in the 60s.
Yeah, that's right there. Other songs like Crying, other stuff there.
Yeah, I think his last one, I'm trying to remember what the name of it was off the top of my head.
You Got
Uh,
It.
yeah, I think that was 70s, but I could be
No,
wrong.
that was 1988. That came out on a
Oh,
record called,
Lord.
yes, it came out in on that album called Mystery Girl that was released following his death that year.
Yeah, and that was a good song.
Yeah. Produced by Jeff Lynne of ELO fame.
Yeah. Then you had the Safaris. Their big song was Wipeout.
Oh yeah, we know that song as well. But it's been covered a lot of times. I mean, Herman Rarebell, the drummer from the Scorpions, he put that out project called Herman Z. German and Friends, and they did his version with a couple of backup musicians there. And I think, if I'm correct, Herbie Hancock, the jazz electronic keyboardist, did his version with Dweezil Zappa, Frank's son there.
Then you had Sam and Dave.
Oh yeah, Sam Moore and Dave. What's his face there? I forgot his last name.
I don't.
But Sam Moore is the only one that's still out there making music nowadays. There. And here's something else. Dave decided to do something. He decided to have a new Sam in a new Sam and Dave lineup, which Sam Moore was disapproved of. And this is for a thing called Stars on 45 featuring Sam and Dave. And it said on the cover there, on the sticker, this features a different Dave, not the original, original Sam, not Sam Moore. And I guess they decided to go on the road, and Sam took his old partner to court. And he did say that they will never perform together again as a result of that.
Yeah. Then you had Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs.
Ah, Wooly Bully.
That was a huge hit for them.
And
they did have some other songs, but Wooly Bully was huge.
Now the funny thing about is Sam the Sham. He was like he portrayed himself as some sort of genie or Egyptian god or something, I guess.
Yeah, he portrayed himself to be from the Middle East.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was.
Yeah, but it was a pretty good gimmick. They had a lot of interesting gimmicks around that time there.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, kind of remind when you think about it, the Grand Wizard, a wrestling manager, they kind of like had a similar gimmicks there going on.
Right.
Yep.
Then you had Santo and Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
Sleepwalking. Cool instrumental.
We know that song pretty much. Larry Carlton did that cover of that song there. I remember hearing on the radio ages ago there.
Scott McKenzie.
We know his song, San Francisco.
Right.
Yep. Which was basically described this San Francisco scene at that time there.
Then you had the Searchers.
Yep.
Needles and Pins, Don't Throw Your Love Away.
Mm-hmm.
They had a ton of songs.
Ah.
The Seeds. Mm-hmm. Their biggest one was Pushing Too Hard.
I don't think I've heard of those guys yet there.
It's a pretty good song from 60s song.
Right there.
Then you had the Seekers, Georgie Girl.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that name a few times there.
I don't remember whether it's them or the New Seekers that does I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing, which is a Coca-Cola thing.
Oh, gosh. I'll probably be the New Seekers most likely there, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
there.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to try and add Tommy NC 2010 to the call here, if you don't mind. See if he wants to hang out with us.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. I'm sure he'll probably answer. I know he was brought on to the show that me, YR, and Jacob RP did there. We were talking wrestling, and all of a sudden we all got caught off at the end, thanks to RP. Here. I want to ask him his favorite 60s artist there while we're on the call. Plus, it's been a while since we hung out, and Tommy's not available, unfortunately, there. Dang gummit.
Okay.
No, right there. Well, it's back to us again there.
The Shadows of Night, who had who had a cover version of Gloria, which actually did better than the them version, the Van Morrison version.
Wow.
But they had a lot of pretty decent songs.
You know, how many versions of Gloria are there out there?
I don't know.
Because we know the Van Morrison, the them version, the version that you mentioned. There was the Jimi Hendrix version that came as a separate attached 45 to the Central Jimi Hendrix Volume 2. There was a Patti Smith group doing their version.
And then you had the Blues Magoos did a 6-minute freakout version.
Ah, wow. That's so. Whoever wrote that song, it must be dying in royalty money. I'll bet you right now.
Well, Van Morrison, I believe.
Yeah.
Then you had the Shangri-Las. 2 big songs. Remember? Walking in the Sand?
Yep.
And Leader of the Pack.
Yep. And we know that, which, by the way, Twisted Sister did their version of that song, Leader of the Pack. And I have to say, I don't know what they were thinking at that time. Probably the record label convinced them to come up with that radio-friendly hit. But definitely, probably did that. Figure, hey, we got to appease the Main Street people out there. Since you made it big with, we're not going to take it there.
Right.
But kind of a cheesy video there when you think about it there.
Yeah. Then you got Shelley Fabares, who was on Donna Reed's show, I think.
Oh, wow.
And she did a song called Johnny Angel. It was pretty big.
Johnny Angel. I remember hearing that a few times.
Then you had the Shirelles. I think they're the one that did the Shoop Shoop, It's in His Kiss song.
Ooh. Yeah, which Cher covered, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, for her movie Mermaids with Winona Ryder.
Then you had Shirley Bassey, who her big one was Goldfinger.
The theme for the James Bond movie there. And let's not forget, it was the 60s where we first got introduced to James Bond. The first one was Dr. No, and it just carried on movie after movie after movie throughout the 70s, the 80s, 90s, 2000s.
I think there's 20-plus movies, but I could be wrong.
Oh, there are probably more than that. And it fits to say that James Bond was the ultimate player when you think about it there. I mean, he was getting poontanged in every single freaking case he was in. Every movie he was in. Poontanged by the pound. Damn.
Then you had Shirley Ellis. Her big one was The Name Game. You know that. Shirley. Poperly, Chandana, Poperly, Beep, by Poperly. Shirley.
I see there.
That song.
I see there.
Really weird song.
Yeah.
Then you had Shocking Blue, who did I'm Your Venus.
By which Bananarama made it to a big hit in '86 there. That song was continuously played on the MTV, VH1, and all the radio stations across the land there.
Well, honestly, Shocking Blue had a pretty big hit in the 60s with it.
Yeah, I know.
And then you had the Silky, who did a cover of the Beatles song You've Got to Hide Your Love Away.
Oh, wow.
Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh, yeah, we know those guys, definitely. They're based out of New York, one of the top folk rock duels out there in the folk rock era, including Bob Dylan, the Kingston Trio, among others there. They had a lot of hits.
Simon and they had Sounds of Silence.
Yep.
I Am a Rock. Yep. Homeward Bound. Bridge Over Troubled Water.
Yep.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yep. Which became the movie, which was the theme song for the Graduate movie with Dustin Hoffman there. In fact, there was when I guess the movie itself had an anniversary somewhere in the 90s there. I forgot which exact year. But for the anniversary, they got the Lemonheads, an alternative rock band, to do the cover of that song there. And I guess the video for it included footages from the movie itself there, along with the band, the Lemonheads, playing along, lip syncing to it there. Basically one of those back and forth scenery type of videos there. We've seen them many times before when it comes to songs from movies there.
Then you had the Singing Nun. He only had really one big song. It's something called Dominique.
Yeah, I heard about that. The Singing Nun. Was she an actual nun, or was that a gimmick?
No, I believe she was an actual nun.
Wow, interesting. And she had a, did she have a, bleh, what am I talking about? Did she have a good
The
singing voice?
Yeah, actually, it was pretty good.
Wow, interesting. And she wasn't one of those, or she was one of those religious, songs, right? I guess.
I honestly don't know. I don't know what the subject matter was. I just know the song.
Oh, out there. Because usually you think it's a, if it's a nun,
Well, it's just one of it was just one of those nice little songs you sit and listen to. You don't pay any attention to the words, or
yeah,
that was the way I did it.
right there. I see that. Because I figure it would be kind of odd for a nun to sing a song like ba 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 bird is a word or something of that nature.
Yeah. And then you had the Sir Douglas Quintet. Their huge hit was "She's About a Mover,"
And she
but they had several others.
and the man Sir Douglas himself is a Texas native.
Yep. I
Yep.
think they were from Austin, but it could be wrong.
Yes.
But yeah, they were definitely Texan.
Nice. I remember hearing about that in a couple of magazines back in the day. They were reading about it. I remember seeing perform the song "You're Gonna Miss Me" on the TV show called Fridays one Friday evening there. Now Fridays, you may remember, was ABC's answer to Saturday Night Live, which was a big hit at that time there.
Yeah.
Not a great.
Sly and the Family.
Go ahead. I was going to say this. He had a lot of great performances on that show. Jefferson Starship, Kiss, King Crimson, and a whole bunch of others there. Heart as well.
Sly and the Family Stone started in the 60s. In fact, they were in Woodstock.
Yep. I Want to Take You Higher was a big favorite amongst that performance there.
Dance to the Music.
Yep. And of course, Everyday People as well there.
Right.
Yep.
I mentioned the Faces a while ago, and there's the Small Faces, which is actually the same group.
Yep.
Well, kind of the same group, mostly the same group.
Yeah, it's just a different singer. The Small Faces had Steve Marriott, which would later form Humble Pie with Peter Frampton, and then there was the Faces, which had evolved into from a 4-piece to a 5-piece there, with Rod Stewart.
And they had Rod Stewart for a while.
Yep, and they had this one song called "Stay with Me," that was a big hit on the radio there.
Yeah. Yeah, and "Song for a Baker," which is a pretty good song.
Yep.
Sonny and Cher.
Oh yeah, I was gonna mention. Yeah, I was gonna mention they had they had a couple of big hits. "The Beat Goes On," and of course, "I Got You, Babe." That was one of the biggest ones there. Let's not forget, the first time I heard of that song was when they would close out their variety show on CBS television with that song, their version of that song, each and every time.
Yep. Well, it was their first big hit.
Yeah.
Then you had the Sopwith Camel, which their first big hit was "Hello, Hello,"
and we know
which actually was their only big hit.
And we know where they got the name, but we discussed it earlier. Snoopy fighting the Red Baron. That's what he would call his fighting vehicle. On top of his, he would refer that as his airplane to go after the Red Baron there, when it was actually him pretending to go after the Red Baron on the top of his doghouse there.
Yep. Then you had Spanky and Our Gang.
Sunday morning, I guess. Sunday afternoon.
Right.
No, Lazy Day was the name of the song.
Lazy Day.
And what?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the Mamas and the Papas did an actual actually kind of two of the original members got back together there. I guess Spanky and McLaren. What's her last name there? If I'm correct.
Don't know.
I know, but she took over the spot of the late Mama Cass, and I guess Mackenzie Phillips took over Michelle Phillips' place. But they had John Phillips and Dennis, what's his face there? I forgot his last name there, dang gummit. But they did some shows together for a short while there. And also, by the way, Dennis, the guy Dennis I mentioned now from the Mamas and the Papas, he was featured in the movie Mask from 1985. He was that one big biker who had trouble speaking.
Right.
Yeah, that was him.
Then you had the Spencer Davis Group.
Oh yeah, we know the singer Steve Winwood, and we know the two big hits from them, I'm a Man, and of course, Give Me Some Lovin'.
Oh, and here's that other group that the outsider singer was in, Spiral Staircase.
Ah, there we go.
Their song was More Today Than Yesterday.
And that, like you said, that was their only big hit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they had the same lead singer. Weird.
Yep, absolutely. But then again, that was not common with the guy Norman Greenbaum, the guy who sang "Spirit in the Sky." He had a hit with this other group, and they had that song with on his own there later on.
Right, both one-hit wonders.
Yep.
Then the group Spirit started in the late 60s.
Oh yeah, we know the band Spirit. We know their drummer Ed Cassidy was like the oldest member of the group at that time.
Yeah, he was old enough to be people's father.
Yeah, I guess.
In fact, he was Randy California's father.
Wow.
Stepfather.
Oh,
Stepfather.
Wow. Interesting there. And we know the songs like no, they're big on I Got a Line on You. Which by the way, Alice Cooper did a cover for a movie called Iron Eagle 2 back in '86 there, or '87 or '88. But it's a pretty damn good.
Did a cover of that song.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Spooky Tooth started in the 60s.
And one of the members was Mick Jones of Foreigner, if I'm correct.
And another one during the course of the group was Gary Wright.
Oh, yeah, who later had a hit of his own with Dreamweaver and Love is Alive.
Yeah. And he had another one that's pretty good called Two-Faced Man.
Yeah. And also he had this...
Well, that's not the only one.
Well, there was this other song, I forgot the name of it, but it was a big hit on the radio and on the MTV back at around 82, 83 there, if I remember. I got to look that up, so I'm trying to find that video there, believe it or not, there. To the post on that music group that I am on Facebook there, definitely for sure there.
The Standells, their biggie was Dirty Water.
Oh, yeah, we know that. A band called The Inmates from the UK covered that song. I remember hearing that version back in later 1979 there.
Interesting, because the song's about the town of Boston being his home.
Yep.
Interesting that a UK band would cover it.
Yeah. But then again, they didn't really care because, what the lyrics were. Because it was, to them, it was a good beat. Let's perform it as it is,
Right. Statler Brothers, they're country, but their biggest song was something called Flowers on the Wall. Talking about, he had plenty to do because he was counting flowers on the wall.
Yes. Too much time in their hands, I guess.
Yeah, it kind of.
Pretty much.
You had Status Quo.
The band.
Then you had Status.
Go ahead. Status Quo.
Then you had the band.
There you go.
Then you had the band Status Quo, who had one U.S. hit, Pictures of Matchstick Men, but they were big in Britain, put out tons of material.
Including rocking all over the world.
And Steam. Keith would like this. Sha-na-na-na, hey, 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 kiss him goodbye.
Yeah, my gosh. I can imagine how much royalty money the members of the composers of that song must be receiving every time fans sing that song out, every time someone, usually a wrestling heel, whether it's Sippy Big McMahon or the Vince McMahon
or a pitcher
himself.
that gave up a lot of runs at baseball games.
Yep, there. A lot of that. I can imagine every time somebody gets ejected from the ring, they sing that song out loud.
Then you had Steppenwolf, who at least their first two albums were done in the 60s. Magic Carpet Ride, Born to Be Wild.
Yep. Other albums.
Suki
Suki. Rock Me. And of course, probably another anti-drug song, which was really profound, The Pusher.
Right. Yeah, their first album had a ton of good material on it. The Steve Miller Band started in the 60s. Their first 4 or 5 albums were in the 60s.
Yeah, and they featured a guy named Boz Scaggs who would later leave and have a solo career of his own with a few solo hits.
Yep. Then you had the Strangeloves, who did the first version of "I Want Candy." Who Bow Wow Wow did it later.
Yeah, I remember hearing that as well there one time at the Goodwill store there. It's like, yeah, this is the song that Bow Wow Wow covered there.
And actually, the interesting thing is they did "Hang On Sloopy" and then gave it to Rick Derringer, who formed the McCoys, to play that song. But look up the Strangeloves version of "Hang On Sloopy," and outside of the vocal, it's identical to the McCoys version. I mean, identical.
And by the way,
outside of the vocal.
And by the way, Rick Derringer from the McCoys, as you said, he would later have a good solo career of his own. Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo.
Yeah.
That was a big hit in the 70s era. And we also did some production with number of WWF wrestlers on the album called The Wrestling Album. In fact, he even formed Real American. Hulk Hogan's theme song.
And he played with Edgar Winter for a while, and he played with Johnny Winter for a while.
Yep. He was the key figure in those guys' careers as well there.
Then you had the Strawberry Alarm Clock, Incense and Peppermints.
Yep.
Which wasn't their only hit, but it was definitely a biggest one.
Yeah, interesting there.
Then you had Sue Thompson. She sang Sad Movies. Always Make Me Cry. Because she went to the movies and saw her boyfriend with her best friend, and they didn't see her, and they were making out and stuff.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's something there.
Yeah, that's a great thing to see.
Oh, man.
That was sarcasm.
I know.
Then you had the Supremes before they became Diana Ross and the Supremes.
Yep. When we
they
know
had
their hits.
A ton of hits.
Yeah, I know. Where did our love go? You Can't Hurry Love, which Phil Collins did a great version of.
You Keep Me Hanging On, which Vanilla Fudge did a great version of.
Absolutely there.
Love Child.
Many others there. I Hear Sympathy.
Symphony,
yes. I get the two words mixed up a lot of times there.
Well, they are similar.
Yeah.
Then you had the Surfaris, and I don't remember their surf song, but it was a big one.
Surfaris. I think it was a Wipeout that you mentioned.
Yeah, it could have been that instead of the Safaris.
I was going to say, because
there was the Surfaris and the Safaris.
Oh, my. I see what you're talking about. Different pronunciations.
One of them is Wipeout, but I don't know. One of them has an A as Safaris, and the other one has a U.
I see where you're coming from now. Yes.
Two different groups, but similar names.
Sounding similar names to be exactly there.
Yeah. Then you had the Swinging Medallions, who did a song called Double Shot of My Baby's Love.
All right.
Syndicate of Sound, Hey Little Girl. You don't have to hide nothing no more.
I see there, yeah.
Which has got a great 12-string guitar bit going on in it. One-hit wonder.
Oh, yeah. And fits to say that Roger McGuinn was the one who really popularized the 12-string guitar when he was involved with the Byrds.
Yep.
Absolutely there. He was the main player in that guitar sound there.
Okay, we'll do
Part 4.
I've got more to go. Well, I was going to say that I've got more of a list here, and I still wanted to get into number ones of the 60s, which we hadn't got time for all of that.
Yeah, sure there.
So I'm thinking, well, let's pick it up tomorrow and start with the T's.
Okay.
And I will mention one other thing. I think I skipped them or missed them or whatever, or I don't remember even talking about them.
Yeah.
Another one-hit wonder was a group called the Music Explosion. They did a song called Little Bit of Soul. and that was a pretty big hit, actually.
And I remember the first time I heard it was when the Ramones covered it back in 1982 on that album there. It's called Subterranean Jungle.
Yeah. If you get a chance, actually look up that Syndicate of Sound "Hey Little Girl" song. I think you'd like it.
Okay, there, definitely.
It's not. It's just kind of. I don't know.
It's not perverted either way.
Well, no. I mean, it's a nice little song. It's a typical '60s song, but it's interesting.
Okay, there. But then again, a lot of simple songs has some really interesting elements into it, whether it's the lyrics, arrangements, or this and that. There,
right?
Yeah, it's like that at times there. Which, by the way, one of these days we should probably do an episode where we talked about the real meanings of certain songs there, because of how people like to misinterpret the left and right here.
Yeah, and I guess we will close out this and do a part 4 tomorrow night.
Yes, absolutely. And hopefully we could get YR on as well as Keith back on the call there.
Right,
go ahead.
I was going to say, which is fine, because they do have input and they do talk about stuff and things like that, but sometimes we get involved in the other things that don't matter.
I know.
They don't matter to me.
Well, other programs have done that a few times in the past. I know the Classic Metal Show program I used to listen to a lot of times on Saturday evenings they would be on a particular topic, and all of a sudden they get a phone call, and then they'll discuss some other topic with that caller here, or they'll stray off into another subject there. But and I know a couple of times other programs have done this here on YouTube just as well there. So it's kind of typical for that to happen on this program there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess then we'll stop the show part of it, and
all right.
I will mention again about we'll do the
part 4,
the Patreon.
Yeah, so we got to plug your Patreon. I did that earlier in my vlog earlier today. Definitely sign up for Arknolia's Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Arknolia. You get a whole bunch of episodes ranging with him discussing music, movies, television, sports, pro wrestling, and other subjects there. Me, YR, and Keith, we are on a couple episodes talking about Batman, Superman, and also, did you ever watch the show The Young Ones, the British comedy from the 80s there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got to definitely pay homage to that program sometime soon there. I did a vlog about that.
I'm not familiar enough with it to discuss it. I mean, I've seen it, but I don't have it in my memory like I do.
Yeah, well, I remember there was about 2 seasons of that program, unfortunately, which I was hoping there'd be a lot more. And they had a lot of great musical guests, including Motorhead, The Damned, other bands.
Did they have something like about 15, 20 episodes, or was there not even that many?
I'm not too sure. I got to look it up on the Wikipedia there, but it was one of those insane British comedies that just go in off every direction you can think of there.
Well, if we're going to discuss insane British comedies, I'd want to talk about Fawlty Towers.
Oh, yeah, and we got to include Monty Python. We also got to include the
absolutely.
The Goodies, if anybody's ever watched that program there. And also the one and only Benny Hill.
Yep.
Got to give that man massive props, because he used to come on, his shows would be on weeknights, Monday through Fridays on the syndication TV on 11 p.m. Eastern time, and I would watch them like crazy. The HBO specials they would have as well there. Used to enjoy the shit out of them. Definitely, that's for sure. All right, so...
Yeah, those were enjoyable shows.
Oh, yeah, we definitely got that. So definitely sign up for Ark's Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Arknolia. And believe me, folks, you will not be disappointed. And with that said, we'll definitely continue part 4 of our 60s coverage tomorrow night. And hopefully we'll be able to get
wire. 70s.
From here after?
After that.
All right, there.
I guess, isn't that the plan?
I guess so. And guess a YRO wants a mentioned suggestion going to the 80s and then the 90s, 2000s, later 2000s, such and such there. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely there. But let's not forget the other topics I threw on the table there for us to discuss as well there. Like
Okay.
artists from Canada, from Australia, the punk rock scene, the industrial scene, goth rock scene, every ounce of everything that's out there. I got a lot of topics to throw on the table there. All right, so hoping we'll be able to get YR and Keith back on the call here, possibly tomorrow night. Send a shout out to those
Okay.
guys out there. And also, we will see you tomorrow night, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. For Ark and myself, we will see you tomorrow night. Bye bye.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to you later, man.